Hello and welcome to episode 1334 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Thursday, August 22nd. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this afternoon by Justin Mason. Justin, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. How we doing?
I'm doing well, man. How excited are you today about the show, about the topic?
Dude,
I'm
it's
pretty
draft
juiced on it.
season. It's
Yeah,
the
I'm
draft.
like,
Yeah, I mean, like
I'm way too juiced on it, dude. I'm a
it's
freak and I
it's so
love it.
stupid at the same time. Like I love it. Like it's like to be able to like talk about a draft that
Right.
is live and this early is just so crazy.
And from our friends,
Um
people,
mhm.
we know it's not some slapdash thing. These are sickos like us. These are our folks. Jenny Butler, Bubba and Bloomy, Rob DiPietro. He ran his. This is the too
Mhm.
early poll hitter podcast that we're going to get into. James Anderson. We'll go through all of it, and all the names are already released. I'm not giving up anything here. If
Yep.
there were no names, we would respect it. We've made our points on all that, but these names are fully released, so we're not doing anything untoward. But yeah, Fish, Weimer, Waxman. It's a great group, and they got through 11 rounds, Justin. So we've got a lot to get into, and that's going to be the focus of the show today. And obviously, this draft in and of itself is not so important so much as it is setting the groundwork. Because believe it or not, this will play a role in the ADP. Now, whether they run it out on NFBC or not and put it into the official ADP, this will impact. When people start doing the first ones that count in NFBC, they will reference this. Okay, where did they go here? Now we're 2 months later. Let me start to adjust that. So this is also useful in terms of laying a groundwork, and it can be really pivotal too. They can create some depressed prices. They can create some overrated prices. So let's go ahead and start with the first round. Obviously, Steve Weimer, is it Weimer? Weimer. It's Weimer, right?
Weimer, I believe.
Steve
Yeah.
Weimer had the top pick, and he went Otani. I think there are multiple eligible number ones, and I don't think that of say the top three, there's necessarily a wrong answer. And I probably have a fourth guy that I could even get in there. Let me give the top five real quick, and then we'll assess here. Otani, Bobby Witt Jr., Aaron Judge, Gunnar Henderson, Juan Soto were the top five. First off, who you take number one right now?
I think it's Otani, and I don't know if it's particularly close, honestly.
That's fair. Doesn't the DH make it close though? And I'm not someone to get hung up on that, but doesn't it?
No.
Okay.
I think the one argument against Otani is that you have to pick between him being a pitcher and a hitter,
Right.
each week, and that will the Dodgers allow him to run in the way that he ran this year when he's back on the mound? They want him sliding into bases.
In fairness, he never slides head first.
Yes, this is true. So, but I mean, you still can fuck yourself up.
Absolutely.
Um,
Anytime you're exerting,
mhm.
you're at risk, right? Routine plays cause big injuries just because they exerted the muscle wrong. Boom, it snapped. Whatever the hell. So absolutely agree there. But when we're getting 20 something steals for him in 2023 and 26 and 2021, that's fine too. And if you're adding the pitching in, it makes up for what I like. While I hear you on, you have to decide, so it can be difficult. If he's acing both, if he's an ace pitcher and an ace hitter, I feel like I can use pronouns when we're talking about Otani because he's so unique. There's no way they don't know who we're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, are they talking about Brendan McKay right now? No, Brett Phillips. They're talking about Brett
Mhm.
Phillips. No, when with Otani, when you have the dual weapon though, think about how dynamic that is in season. If your team starts to pivot, you have this weapon here that can turn the tide on whichever side you really need the most, right? Because I think most people run him as a hitter almost exclusively. But then what if your pitching starts to struggle? You hit on a few late gems, then you can shift Otani into the rotation down the stretch.
Yep.
I guess the tough part though is we don't know how much he'll pitch next year and how much
Yeah.
they will push him. So maybe you can't do it down the stretch. I'm with you on him at number one. I think that is where I go right now. But I do think Witt, Judge, Gunnar, and Soto are all viable at the one spot.
I honestly think that, yeah, I mean, if you're gonna say that other guys are a part of that, one potential one spot, I would say Witt for sure. I'd say Henderson for sure. I'd say Judge is in that conversation. Soto, depending on where Soto ends up.
I'm operating
Um,
as though he's a Yankee. I understand that that might not be the case. I feel strongly that it's going to be, though. I cannot imagine how they let him go. If they
I,
do,
I
I'll
I
reassess. But
I would love to see him there because I think that is just a fantastic spot for him. But
Right.
he's going to go wherever the money tells him to
And
go.
and they're gonna give him they
I would
have
assume.
to.
I would
They've been light on the market last few,
this
you know,
season, but
they've been
like there has been talk that they're not going.
they're moronic if they don't. But
Sorry,
anyway, and I'll reassess if he doesn't go there.
But I also think and I know that this is going to be an unpopular take. I also think you have to potentially put Ronald Acuna Jr. in this mix. Like I know he's missed a lot of time, he's injury prone, but I mean we're talking about a guy who can steal 70 bases. We're talking about a guy who can hit 40 home runs, and he should be healthy entering 2025. Like
you couldn't pay me to do it. You couldn't pay me to do it.
I don't know if I would do it either, but I'm gonna have a really, really hard time if he looks good in March.
I paid to do it this year, and I can't pretend that doesn't color it. Although I'm not really trying to hold any grudge, right? Like anybody can get hurt.
I spent $60 in both tout and labor to do it.
Right. So we took it on the chin there with Acuna.
Imagine how much I'd be winning by if I had lost.
Would you really go to that well though? Given how hurt, now that it's both legs too.
I mean, I was going to say it depends on the price. But I mean,
the price would be number one pick.
Yeah, no, I don't think I would. I mean, I'm going to go Ohtani probably.
Right. Zach Waxman did get Acuna at 11, which I certainly think is totally fine there. I mean, it's a deep first round.
That. Yeah, I love that. This is a good season to draft at the back. It really
I thought this year was too. Because
it turned out to be, yeah.
I thought Ohtani and Soto were reasonable 1-1 viable guys this year. Well, maybe not 1-1, 1-2. Because I was Acuna with a bullet at number 1 coming into this year. But I thought guys like Ohtani and Soto were viable at 2, and they were always going in that Ohtani would reach up to I think 5. I forget what his min pick was. He would touch up there, but Soto was a firm late first rounder, which I loved. And he's panned out brilliantly. Okay, so then from there they go Jose Ramirez at 6, Ellie De La Cruz at 7 to Rob DiPietro, which I love. I said this to him. I said, I love Ellie at 7. It feels amazing, and yet I have no stern critique for anybody in the top 6, meaning I don't necessarily think he should have gone higher, and yet getting him at 7 feels like a steal for Ellie. That's incredible. Tucker,
I honestly
8. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I honestly think that Ellie can be in that 1-1 conversation.
I think you could too. Now, how in God's name can you come around to that and you won't acknowledge that we were wrong this year then?
Oh, we were wrong. No. We were
okay,
wrong.
Thank God. Jesus.
Yeah, we were wrong.
That took way too long to get you there. Because he's there. He's there. I just got too hung up on the downside. And
I
really,
still think the downside is there, which is why I won't draft him.
The downside, though,
5, but
the downside's 220, 20, 40. That's the realistic downside, right? Because he's going to play. He'd have to be last year, August, for 4 months to really be in any danger of getting sent down. Again, I know things can happen, but Ellie, unbelievable. Definitely ate that one this year. 22 and 60 so far with a very, very strong 262. Nothing wrong with that batting average there. You don't feel bad about eating that there. Kyle Tucker goes 8. Paul Skeens 9. We knew that was going to be happening in the first round. Mookie Betts 10. Acuna at 11. Tarek Skubal at 12. J-Rod, Julio Rodriguez at 13. Fernando Tatis Jr. at 14. And Jenny Butler wrapped it up in the first round there with Francisco Lindor at 15. Let's focus on this middle here. Let's say from this Soto to Betts range. How do you feel about that 5 through 10? I mean, you're talking about the depth of this first round. I have no problem with any of those picks. Mookie at 10 feels great. Do you have a favorite there in that Soto, Ramirez, Ellie, Tucker, Skeens, Betts group? I guess it's Ellie, so who's your second favorite?
If Soto's in New York, yeah, it's Soto.
Right.
I mean, I love all those guys.
It's a great group.
Tucker scares me a little bit just because of how long he has missed.
A little bit up in the air, right?
Yeah, so... and like I said, I think Acuna deserves to be in the 1-1 conversation if we're including all those.
What about Betts then? Why wouldn't he also deserve to be in that mix then?
He's just missed so much time this year that it scares me a little bit, and he is older.
And I know he doesn't
So
run as much, so I'm not saying a
yeah,
1-to-1 with Acuna. It made it sound like I was there, and I apologize for that. He doesn't run nearly as much. I grant that, but he does everything else exceedingly well.
I think for
He
me there is a pretty clear, now that I'm kind of looking at this, and um, I think there's a pretty clear top 8 for me, I think, with like a small drop to the next tier. And so like it would be the guys who went in 7 of the top 7, then Acuna, and then the next set would be a different tier in itself.
is Mookie only playing right field since he came back? Yeah,
I
he
believe
is.
so. Yeah.
He's going to come up 3 games shy of second base eligibility. He'd be triple eligible next year. Maybe not. We'll see. Something happens. They got to slot him in there for a few days. I'm not rooting for injury for anybody, but I guess Gavin Lux is the one playing second base, and he's been absolutely cooking of late. Maybe, I don't know, just let him play 3 games at second base. I just want triple eligible Mookie. That'd be so cool. J-Ram, the quiet superstar. Where do you like him? He goes 6 here, feels great, got no issues with it. What's the highest you're taking him on the cusp of another 30-30 campaign? He hasn't had one since 2018, but he's a firm, 2020, 30-20 type guy. 32 homers right now, 29 steals. So again, he's getting a 30-20 or 30-30. Is J Ram somebody you'd consider higher than that 6 spot, or is that about your max there?
I think I'd consider him as high as 3.
I
Um,
think so too.
I just, to me, I think that like if we're really, really kind of splitting hairs, I think Otani and Witt are kind of a uber elite tier of themselves. Like I think those are the 2 guys that can go 1-1 pretty interchangeably. But then,
But wait, why isn't Judge there? What does this man have to do?
I mean, I think the batting average will regress for Judge, and he doesn't steal as much as the other guys.
He doesn't steal. That's right. 6 this year, 16 in 2022. That was cool. I mean, he might not hit 334. What if he hits the 311 that he hit in 2022? I don't know, man. This dude he doesn't miss. I'm kind of tired of myself. This is a note to myself, kind of underrating Judge, because I kind of take the same angle sometimes where I'm like, oh, I'll take him third. I don't know. I think he's right there. I understand he's getting older too. He'll be 33.
Yeah.
People do worry about the health, and it's not an invalid concern, but it's not like Otani never gets hurt.
I mean, like, here's the thing. You said, what if he hits the 311 of 2022? Like, what if he hits the 267 of 2023? And then it's just a amazing power guy.
I mean, that's a
But
106 game washout. Like that's in the cards, sure. I still got
yeah,
37,
and
but I still got
and
37.75
and
out of him when he did that.
and like the whole thing is his injury history, right? Like this is a guy who like he has a body that is, I mean, it's so massive, and he's getting older. Like, is he going to continue to miss more time as he gets older? Like, I just
Wait, are you
think he's
talking
a
about Otani or Judge?
Judge.
Yeah, I was joking,
Oh, okay. Sorry. I
implying that
didn't.
they're the same though. Because you
Oh,
can say the same exact thing about Otani. He's not as big, but he's a big body guy. Played a buck 25 so far this year. How many is that? How many has he missed? He hasn't missed that many though. Then never mind. That was
yeah, yeah.
unfair to bring up this.
Okay,
Missed
that's
three
why I
games
didn't
this year.
realize. Yeah,
Sorry, I thought he missed more this year. But he
Yeah,
played
Otani doesn't miss
135 last year. Played 135 last year. He
when he
can't
got
pitch.
Tom. Like he got because he was like getting Tommy John and shit. Like he's just like,
He can't get Tommy John again.
I mean, he could, but like we don't expect him to miss time. Like or at least very much time. Like I don't think there's, at least from hitting, in my opinion.
I don't know. I wasn't incorrect on. I thought he had missed. I thought he had an IL stint this year. My fault. But
No.
135 last year has the TJ going back to pitching. I don't know. I like Otani. I am taking
you
him.
can make the argument. I
just think Judge
I,
belongs there. That's all I'm saying. Is all the dude does is
he belongs
perform.
he belongs in, and miss time. He belongs in the conversation. I'm not saying he doesn't. I'm saying like he's part of this top 8.
But he's there. No, he's every bit as there. That top 3 is what I'm saying.
I don't
He's
think
just
he
gotta
is.
be.
I don't.
Be that as it may. Gunner into the top 5. Fantastic stuff with him. Are you top 5 with Gunner?
Yeah, I think I am. And I mean, this is coming from someone who has been
We slept
like
on him last year.
a pretty big detractor of Gunnar Henderson, but it's the gains that he's made against left-handed pitching that has really impressed me over the course of like the last year and a half. Like he's just
right?
really gone from being a guy who was at risk of platooning to like, hey, this is a certified stud who hits for power and can steal bases too. I I just think he's so good.
Sorry about
And
that.
like this Orioles team, I think is just going to get better and better
Right.
around him, and that is so intriguing. So yeah, I'm all in on Gunner too. I wish he was third base eligible still, but we'll take that shortstop.
Gladly take shortstop there. It is a nice, robust shortstop round there with Witt, Henderson, Ellie, and Lindor, and Betts. So 5 shortstop eligibles. We have 2 starters, Skeens and Scoobs, the SKs. Do you agree with that? Are those the 2? Is there anybody else? Would you even take those 2 in the first round? What first round pitcher? How do you feel?
It's so hard. I mean, I think the pitching in this, and I mean, we'll talk about it from just like a general sense.
Yeah, we're gonna do a positional
Yeah,
breakdown after this and spin around the diamond real quick.
but like the names in their places is very jarring. I do think that both Scooble and Skeens are top 5 guys heading into next season. I don't know that I would take Skeens first. I can totally understand it though.
I'm
Uh,
fine with it. Yeah, I think it's a coin
yeah,
flip between them. I got no problem. You want the lefty, you
yeah,
want the righty. I think those are the 2. The next 2 that went are Wheeler and Burns, and I'm just going to take the young guys over them, right?
mhm.
So I think that makes a lot of sense there. I love so many hitters. Now you said top 5. You meant top 5 pitchers or top 5 players?
Top 5 pitchers. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. So what is the earliest you are taking a starter then? 7? I mean 8. You said a top 7. Is 8 the earliest, or would you still slot? Or no, you said Acuna. So you have the 7 that went the top 7 plus Acuna
7.
as your
Yeah.
firm top 8. So 9 where Skeens went. That's also your earliest that you might consider a pitcher, or no?
I don't think I'm going to take a pitcher in the top 10,
Okay. So they have to make back end of the first round for you
but
to get Skeens Scooble,
I think after Tucker Betts, like, or I think after like kind of the 11 that we see, um,
right?
or the 10 minus Skeens, I think 11 through 15 is where I would consider it. But I don't even. I mean, I think from a you and I kind of discussed this off air. We should have just waited till we started recording. Like, there, I think there is like a strategical advantage to like just kind of pushing pitching down
Right.
with how good the hitting is and how good the pitching is. Um,
Exactly. And how it feels like, I mean, streaming was not easy. And we talked how the dearth
yeah.
of pitchers in 15 team leagues. That is true. It was still better than hitting.
Hmm.
And I don't really want to be scraping for hitting on the wire. So I want to build that base. I was looking at James Anderson's team and he put together an amazing rundown. And I also want to shout out Rob real quick, Rob DiPietro, Deadpool Hitter on Twitter. He put this together. You should be listening to his pull hitter pod or the launch angle pod. He's got a couple podcasts. So check out Rob. He's amazing. Deadpool hitter. And then James Anderson
Yep.
over at RotoWire was part of the draft, did a great rundown, and I really loved his setup. He came out of these top 11 rounds with 3 pitchers.
Yeah.
And I think that's just kind of where I want to be. 3, maybe 4. I had 4 through 11 this year on my main, and they didn't even work out. Bobby Miller and Yu Darvish was amongst them. Hader and Burns were the other ones, but I felt fine. I did hit on 2 big gems. I hit on Heel and Raylo. That's not going to happen every year. I'm not getting, X number, almost 200 innings of sub 3 ERA. That's not always happening. But I do want to swim in the middle rounds of the pitching, and we'll get to it. We can start with SP if we want. We do not have to start at catcher. So let's take
Yeah.
a look at how pitchers
We
broke
love
down.
pitching. Yeah. Let's talk
Right.
about that. Yeah.
So let's jump into that. There were 52. So again, this was 11 rounds, 15 teamer. So that's going to be 100 and what's that? 165 picks. Did it in my head. Yeah. Everyone's like, yeah, because you've passed 3rd grade. I'm like, no, I'm a moron. I did that one. 52 pitchers went. About expected, right? I think that
Yeah.
number seems pretty fair. I don't know what the normal is in an 11 round sample, but that feels about right there. After Skeens and Scooble in the first round, you had 3 guys go in the next round, Wheeler, Burns, Kirby, and then another 5 in the top 50, but only 10 in the top 50. And that felt a little light. And I'm wondering if just with the general pitching landscape as a whole, is the world, is the draft pool itself kind of pushing away from that early pitching, being like, hey, we got to be careful here because this is such a treacherous landscape that we're going to push it down a bit and kind of figure things out. How many did I say went in that top 50 there? 10. I think last year we had 18 total pitchers, but minus one, two, two relievers. So that's 16. So that's just main event ADP versus this draft. There were 6 more pitchers within the top 50. 5 more. I missed Emmanuel Clase. Anyway, what do you think of the 10 in the top 50 here? Does that feel right or light to you?
I think it is right for this time of year. I think what we see in kind of
That's a great point.
In these early DCs is because so many pitchers get hurt that people kind of push the pitching down a little bit at the top because they're afraid of losing a guy who's a first round or a second round pick.
Right.
Before the season even starts. So
because things can be discovered in the offseason that are bigger injuries. You have no offseason dust has settled yet.
Yeah, trades are going to happen. Signings are going to happen. But the injuries are the big one, right? Because the last thing you want to do is, draft a Paul Skeens in the first round, and then all of a sudden, he's getting Tommy John, heading into March.
Right. That would be a nightmare, of course.
So we see this. This is why we always talk about in March, pitching's getting pushed up.
Exactly.
And we talk about it through January and February. Hey, pitching's going to get pushed up.
And so I think come March 2025, we will be closer to 15, 16 starters in that top 50. That's what you're saying too, right? Okay.
The yellow brick road we see in the third and fourth round here will get moved up into the second and third round. And you'll see probably another pitcher or two in that first round.
I think that's exactly right. Who those pitchers are, we do not know. They could be.
My guess is you're going to see Wheeler and Burns.
I think it could be. It could be one of those fourth rounders. I think Glasnow could get pushed up again. Big September, big playoff. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like shows he's healthy again.
Yep.
Boom, he's back up.
Depending on some of these TJ returnee guys, coming back at the end of the season, like a DeGrom.
Right. He went in the third to Rob.
Oh, and that's what I mean. Like he's already going in the third. Like if he looks good in spring, if he comes back at the end of the season, pitches, enough innings and looks good in spring, like he's a first rounder. It's shocking to me to see Garrett Cole be as low as he is in this. Like you got to think like that's a guy who has been a first rounder, and in this he went in the back end of the 5th round.
Did that not feel? What am I missing there?
I would say Garrett Cole.
That's what I'm saying. No, I'm saying higher.
Oh, okay.
Why so low?
Yeah. I don't know.
Listen, I'm not unaware of the numbers this year, folks, because I'm sure some of you are screaming, he has a 4.15 ERA and a 1.37 whip. I understand, but this is a washout year. I guess he's 34 next year.
After his start today, he's already down to a 3.72 ERA.
There you go. Yeah, because he only has 10 starts. So every start is still putting a huge impact on his ERA, to your point.
I mean, if you look for just his 3 starts in August, and obviously that's a super small sample, right?
Right.
But it's a 1.59 ERA, 11 strikeouts per 9. Like
so that might be a bargain there. That's in the moment, and this is the beauty of these drafts, right? Too, I'm not clowning anybody. Far be it for me to, because you get in these in the heat of the moment too. These are hard drafts because they're not preparing a ton, right? They might have scrapped a list together to have some names to go off of, but nobody's uber prepared. So I'm not throwing stones here. This is some interesting stuff. I love it. The DeGrom in the 3rd round, like you said, if we're anchoring him there to start, then you're 100% right that if he's healthy, that's a first rounder. I'm not saying I would necessarily do it or that you're committing to doing it, but if we see healthy DeGrom in spring, there are people that will buy in right away. And I get it because when you see somebody at the peak of their power or, peaking at near 100% with his talent, even at his age, I do think somebody would probably take that gamble because Rob.
And I was say, like, here's why, like, going back to the kind of the strategic, part of this is, like, if we start pushing those guys up into the first round, like I said, I think you're going to see at least 2 more of those guys get into the first round. All of a sudden, you're looking at, like, you could be at 13, 14, or 15. And if you want to start hitter, you could go like Tatis Lindor. You can
Right.
go Betts, and Tatis or Vlad. Like the back end of the first round starts looking really, really interesting. But even like the hitters who might fall to the second round, even at the beginning, like could be really, really interesting.
I mean, yeah, look at those guys again. We're gonna stay on pitching real quick, but just real quick, Vlad Jr., Yordan Alvarez, Corbin Carroll, and Corey Seager, the first 4 picks of the second round. Those are amazing guys. Those are all horses, and it's the second round. They should be horses. I'm not marveling at that, but those are like first round caliber guys. All 3 of them, the first 3, Vlad Jr., Alvarez, and Carroll, were all first round ADPs this year. Yes,
You
Vlad,
didn't even
was right.
No, I don't think Vlad was kind of the borderline.
Oh no, he was later. He was 33. Sorry. So he's moving back up.
Freddie Freeman and Bryce Harper for sure were, and they're already going in the middle part of the second round. If pitching gets pushed up ahead of them, then you're talking about like, hey, I could start like
Ohtani Harper,
Freeman, or Judge Harper. like this is going to be a fun year to draft. And obviously things are going to change.
Every year's a fun year to draft. Justin, that's the beauty.
I mean, yeah, I know it is, but like this is why like I'm glad nobody asked me to be in these, because once the draft room's open in NFBC, I say every year like, oh, I need to stop doing so many DCs. This is why I do so many DCs, is because I
feel you, but I'm using this to start the prep and to have a cohesive list come October. Because if I'm going to join those drafts, I have to be prepared. I've talked about this a couple times already this year, my fucking DCs. The only one that's good is the one with Greg, and let's just give all the credit to Greg. Now, he would be humble enough to not do that, but I'm gonna, because my DCs suck. So talking things out with him was great. And I know where it is. It falls apart at the back end. And that's where you win those. So, of course, they're not doing, like, I know. I have, I've seen what it takes to succeed. I'm not new to DCs, but I've just gotten complacent. And so I need to be better. Thankfully, I only did 2 others in addition to that one. So it's not like I got 10 lined up and there are 9 duds and the one good one. I didn't do too many, but if I'm going to do them, put in the freaking effort. So I'm actually already getting juiced to start making my 2025 list. Let's get back into these SPs here because there are a lot more. Check out this like danger road here. And it's an upside danger road, but like, from ADP 37 to 54, we see a group of guys: Jacob deGrom, Chris Sale, Dylan Cease, Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, and I'm going to throw Joe Ryan in there too because he's currently hurt. Of that 6-pack there, is there any you're not drafting? If I get you in a draft October 1st, are there any of those that you're saying they're not even on my board? At this general ADP, give or take 10 picks. So
okay,
I'll give you up to 64 on Joe Ryan, up to 47 on deGrom.
We're talking about deGrom to Ryan.
deGrom to Ryan, yeah. That group of 6 like could be amazing, but also very scary injury, like the extra injury risk. We talk about how everyone has it. They're dealing with extra right now because of the year that they've had and their previous history.
I'm probably not drafting a lot of them.
Okay, so you're kind of out on this group.
I mean, I'll draft Sale. Sale pitched the entire year healthy. He's looked fantastic. He's looked like the Chris Sale of old.
So you're not ageist because he's the second oldest of the group.
I'm not as worried about the age. I'm more worried about like just the general health.
Right.
If deGrom comes back and pitches this year and looks even, he doesn't even have to look deGrom-ish necessarily. But
no, there's a range for him because he's so good.
Yeah, but if he just looks decent enough, like the velocity's there,
right.
The
he can spin
on pitches are there. Yeah, like, exactly. Like deGrom will be there for me.
Excuse me.
It will for the other guys. It's kind of the same thing. If they come back and look healthy.
So then, what about Blake? Sorry to cut you off there, but he's pitching well right now. He's actually the one that's like, or him and Sale are the ones that are flying high right now.
The hard part for Snell for me is I have no idea where he's going to be because
I knew you were going to say that.
He's going to opt out. He's not going to be in San Francisco. I'd love to see the Giants go and sign him. They've talked about re-signing both Snell and Chapman, though Chapman is the one that they're more likely to re-sign just because he's
Which
cheaper.
makes it makes sense. He's cheaper. He's the
Yeah,
the positional player. I get it. By
yeah,
the way, they did label free agents to be. They didn't with Snell since he does have an opt out.
yeah.
So when you're looking
But
at the
he is
board,
for sure opting out. Like
I think
I
at the
don't
very
see his,
least he's opting out to see what he can get, and then he could
yeah.
wind up back with San Francisco. So, okay, let's keep going here then. We've got one more in the top 60. That's Fromber and Lopez. So two more in the top 60. So that ends up being 14 pitchers in the first 4 rounds there. Let's talk about Fromber and Lopez real quick. They go right there at the back end, last 2 picks of the 4th round. They've had some ups and downs this year. Fromber's getting back on a high recently, but they've had their tumult, if you will. Do you have any concerns about either of them? Do you think that price point is fair? Top 4 round pick for Fromber Valdez and Pablo Lopez.
I think Fromber is kind of right where he should be.
Yeah,
Personally,
I just trust him so much.
I do. But that was a negative thing in comparison because I think Pablo Lopez deserves to be in the previous round.
Oh,
Like
you're moving Lopez up,
yeah,
and
I
you
don't
keep
think
Fromber here. Lopez jumps.
I took
Okay, talk to
Lopez
us
in the
about that.
third. I took Lopez in the third round last year. I have zero issues taking him in the third round next year. I understand that it's been up and down, but all the skills are intact. Like he has been
Right.
unlucky in certain games. The xERA is 356. If his ERA was 356, he would be ahead of that DeGrom grouping, I think.
It's
And
447 right now for Pablo Lopez, and
yeah,
you're right. There's no way that doesn't weigh in it a little bit there and push him down a
yeah.
few picks just because you see it. 447, you're like, oh, but that's not
It's
that
just
far from being great,
it's just for a good team with a great defense,
right?
in a good park, like in a great division to pitch in. Like I don't see anything wrong with Pablo Lopez, and I have zero problems taking him ahead of the guys I do have question marks in that like previous grouping, in guys like Blake Snell, in guys like DeGrom, in guys like Joe Ryan,
So
even guys.
Lopez in the 40s for you then about
Yeah, I think so.
overall.
Mhm. Yeah,
I'm okay with that.
yeah. No, I mean, obviously that may change depending on how
Right.
guys
We're
finish.
not holding you to this.
And I do projections and stuff like that, but off the top of my head, like back of the napkin type of math, like I go, yeah, he's probably ahead of a lot of those guys.
Now go look
Um,
at 69 there, which is very nice, but does he pull
nice.
your buddy up with him? Does Pablo Lopez bring his partner in crime up with him into that 40s with you? You were a big believer this year. It has panned out on Bailey Ober, 354 ERA, 099 whip. Is he somebody that's trending in that top 40, top 45 overall picks next year for you?
So I just said I would take Pablo Lopez in the same spot I took him last year, or in my main event this last year, in the middle of third round. I would take Bailey over Pablo Lopez.
Okay,
So,
great. So then we're getting somewhere with that.
I mean, I think he is a top 10 starter. I
love him. I'm with you, dude.
So,
You know I'm right there with you. Like I said, I sold you on him, and I'm happy to have done it
Yep.
because he's a G. And for both of them, really, it comes down to home runs, and couple multi-homer games has helped elevate Lopez's ERA, but he's still so darn good. And Ober's just been wonderful and kind of worked around his 1.2 homer 9 because he is doing that classic thing where he never lets anybody on. So when he does give up a bomb, it's usually a solo dolo. So that's not too bad. Yamamoto goes right ahead of him at 66. Just open question, where you at on Yamamoto? I know he might return this year, so you can get more info. But right now, if I did press you to draft, my guess is you're just passing on him altogether. But what do you think of Yamamoto around pick 66?
Before we move on Yamamoto, one more
Okay.
thing on Bailey Ober.
Yes,
Bailey
absolutely.
Ober had just an atrocious first start of the season. Gave up 8
Right.
home runs, a bunch of home runs. If you cut that off, his homer rate is 1.04 for the year.
Which I can totally live with. And frankly, you could cut the other KC start off if now he has to face them again next year, and they're going to continue to
Yeah.
be good. But 6 homers and 14 runs on 2 starts, which totaled 6 and a third against them. He'd have a sub-3 ERA, looking like a Cy Young candidate without. Now those starts count, and again, they're not
They do.
going anywhere.
Yeah,
They weren't
yeah.
unlucky, but they show you the consolidated trouble there. And I just don't think they're going to cave his face in every time they face him. I think he'll be better next time around, but they do have his number this year for sure. Those are the only 2 times he's faced him. I wonder, what if he got him in the playoffs and then got the revenge? That'd be hot.
I would love that.
Okay, so then Yamamoto,
Yeah, as
just
far as Yamamoto
generally where you
goes,
at?
I'm probably out for right now.
Okay.
I one of my off-season articles I have kind of planned is I want to kind of do a historical look at Japanese pitchers coming over in their second year,
Like it.
because my belief and my memory says that a bunch of them get Tommy John surgery or have like just massive injury issues because they're adjusting to a different schedule of pitching. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and we've already seen like, hey, towards the end of the year, he's having problems this year. And so I think he is going to be a massive landmine that I'm going to try to avoid heading into
Yamamoto's, you're out.
yeah, I'm out.
I don't think that's a problem necessarily. You know what really bothers me is that I think Senga had really figured it out there in the second half, and I
Yep.
was so excited to see what he could do in his first full season with, everything in order, not kind of
Mhm.
dealing with the ball and the New York of all of it. Like he handled it brilliantly, but I'm just saying I wanted to see 6 full months, not 4.5, which is what we got last year, and the injuries have just eaten him up. So I'm so bummed about that with Senga. I am intrigued by him next year, and since I did bring him up, I will point out he did go in these top 11 rounds here at pick 105, and Justin and I were talking about that, the phenomenon of making sure that we don't forget about those guys. In fact, I'm going to jump down here a little bit, and we can't get to all 52 pitchers, or else we're not going to get to any other positions. But this little group here at 99 through 105 with Strider, Woodruff, and Senga, it's like the bargain bin version of that group I gave you earlier with those 6 guys, because these guys all had huge injuries that cost them the bulk of this year. So where do you stand then? Strider, Woodruff, Senga? You taking any of those 3 at that near 100 or just after 100 price point?
I'm gonna have a hard time drafting any of them. I think that
Until March or just at all?
at all,
Okay,
guys returning from
that's
like
fair.
massive injuries in the first, especially guys who
TJ.
return from TJ. Now, I will say that I was corrected by somebody in one of my chats. I kept saying TJ for Strider, and apparently he got the internal brace, which is a little bit
Okay,
different and more and easier to come back from, which
right.
is
So
so
worth a distinction worth noting is what you're
yeah.
saying. Got it.
It still worries me because we don't have as much data on the internal brace as we do
Agreed.
on Tommy John. So I definitely want to. I think if we're talking about early drafts, they're probably all off my board, and then I make a decision come March whether or not I'm going to move them up my board or not.
I think that's totally fair there, and I'll be playing it cautious with this trio here specifically. But like I said, I just big reminder for myself is to not forget about those guys going into these drafts, because I can get so only this year
Yeah,
focused, and then I start seeing them go off the board. I'm like, oh, I should have taken Shane McClanahan because he dropped to pick 95 or something. Whatever the
yeah.
case may be. Again, we can't get to every pitcher. Here's anybody that you really wanted to point out before we start going around the diamond with catcher.
Um,
And we can do a couple
no,
guys. It doesn't have to just be one.
I just don't think there's going to be the discount that I was hoping for on some pitchers, like like Brandon Fott going as high as he is.
Right. To James
Like
Anderson, by the
to
way. I
James
liked that pick.
Anderson. Yeah, like Spencer Schwellenbach, like a guy that I've
Right.
really liked. Like
Big fan of
he's
him
going.
too.
I mean, there definitely are some guys that I go, okay, that's probably too low for Zach Gallen.
And that's one of those that'll morph. We push
Yeah,
away from this season a little bit. We get back in tune with the fact that, okay, maybe because give him a little ding for all the volume last year.
yeah.
That's what put me off of him this year. I think it has come to fruition that he's just a little fatigued, so he's just a bit off. Get a rest. Although I say get a rest this year, they're going back to the playoffs, it looks like. So he might
Yeah.
not. I guess maybe then. Are you sure that he's going? Well, by the way, where is he going? What was his
He
ADP?
went in the 10th round.
145.
That feels like a steal for a
That's
guy
pretty
that
nice. A
we're
hot
drafting
playoff, I
him
think, would
top
run that
25.
back up, but
Yeah.
that is pretty low right now at pick 145 for Zach
Even like
Gallen.
Luis Castillo, like we're talking about guys who are going second, third round, who are
Right.
like in this draft, like going in the 6th, the 8th, the 10th round. Like, they're gonna be guys that I love that I go, man, I'm not getting the discount I thought I was gonna get on them. And there's gonna be guys where I go, this is way too cheap for Zach Allen. This is way too cheap for Luis Castillo. Like I think it's I
Luis
can't.
Castillo 78 overall, by the way, which I like
The
that price
fact
point.
that I'm not going to draft until the season's over, and
Good,
I'm going to
good.
do my best to try to do my projections before I draft.
Ooh,
So I probably won't draft until November,
there's
or at
nothing wrong
least
with that.
I may join a draft, but like I'm not going to like full board draft until
Right.
November.
I think that's
Uh,
what I did last year. I might have participated in something like this that was slash mock-ish, and then my first DC was in
the hard part
November.
is I don't want the gladiators to run out. So
Also,
like
good point. Do those go in October? I can't
they
remember when
they they start in October and they go through usually like end of November.
I know I'll
Um,
be doing a few again. Those are so fun. Gladiator, by the way, y'all, you draft your 23 and that's it. Gladiator,
yeah,
you know, you gotta survive. And so the
and
earlier
I've
you
got
draft, the
one good
crazier
one.
it can be. That's awesome. I do not. Mine all skunked this year with some devastating injuries. We can review those after the year because those will be pretty funny. But yeah, pitching is wide open. And again, with 52 going, we can't deep dive all of it. We'll obviously have tons of next year coverage as the season ends. But I do want to spin around the diamond here in our last 15, 20 minutes and talk each position. Catcher had 11 guys go, and we were just talking about catcher yesterday, so we don't have to go too crazy on it. We were talking about, you know, what we liked here, and guess what? Will Smith did not go top 5. He went 6th. It was Contreras, Rutschman, Ohapi, Yainer Diaz, and Sal Perez. And I don't really have any objections there. Will Smith, Real Muto, and Wilson Contreras going after, though, I'll tell you what, as much as I have no real problem with any of those top 5, throw in Cal Raleigh, and I like those next 4, Smith, Real Muto, Contreras, and Raleigh, so much at their price points, ranging from 95 to 121 there. What do you think about catcher in the 11 that went here?
Okay, so last year in the main event, we only had one catcher, and that was Adley Rutschman going inside the top 75 picks. This year we have 4. And that
Catcher's
doesn't even
back.
include Sal Perez, who's going 81. I mean, and you know, for more
Who's
context,
like right there is what you're saying.
yeah.
Like he'll be right there on that cusp.
So like, yeah, like the catchers are definitely getting pushed up in a way they weren't last year. And
now will they be the culprits when the pitching gets pushed up? Do catchers start to get? Do you see any correlation there or no?
they definitely could be.
I could see people maybe being like, I'll go for the pitcher here and punt on Adley because I'll settle for, quote unquote, settle for Cal Raleigh, the other switch hitting catcher, you know, 50 picks later type of vibe.
Yeah. I definitely could see that being the case, especially because I think catcher is fairly deep.
Right.
So as pitchers start to get pushed up, though, I mean, I will say in this draft, like, there were a lot of pitchers that went in these first 11 rounds. So I don't know
52.
how much. I think the top end of pitching gets pushed up. I don't know if all of the pitching gets pushed
If that
up. So
middle gets pushed to push down these catchers. That's fair. I was just wondering if that's a position that you would instantly associate with maybe sacrificing to get a pitcher, because in my mind I kind of think I would. Like I want to get those fundamental infield positions and a couple outfielders, and if I'm drafting and I'm like I got to take a pitcher here, it might be in lieu of one of those premium catchers, which I'm not averse to drafting. I'm very open to it, in fact. Anything else on catcher here? I will point out that our boy, or at least my boy, I know I've been a huge Tyler Stevenson fan. I've talked about how he's finally having a good year. He made it in here, top 11. He went pick 148, and I don't have any problems with it. Alvarez was the other guy. I mentioned all the other 10. I figure I might as well mention Alvarez. Any final thoughts on catcher?
Well, I mean, let's talk a little bit about Stevenson, because are you as thrilled with him in the second half, where the power has
definitely not bit? No, because he's come down.
He's picked it up this month. So, but like June was barren. July was not great. August has been fantastic.
The June swoon was when he starts popping up on waiver wires again.
Yeah.
And then he goes 5 and 5 home runs apiece in July and August. And all of a sudden he's in the top 11 rounds here, which I think makes sense. I've always felt like he could tap into the power. I guess your question is probably like, well, can he sustain it for another 5 weeks? And if so, are we comfortable with him all the way back in the top 150? If you give me just solid, he doesn't have to hit another 5 homers in September as well. Give me 3 homers and a 260 average with the requisite runs and ribbies. I'm fine if he closes it out well. I think Tyler Stevenson is back up there. He was going. Where was he going this year? He was going 239. And that's a decent jump, but I've always believed in him, and I like seeing that he's put something on paper here, and I'd be okay with a late top 150 pick.
All right. I'm fine with that as well.
Anybody else a catcher?
No, we got too much to talk about.
All right, let's talk some first baseman. First baseman's kind of ugly, Justin. 12 went.
It's very ugly.
These names do not get me going, man. Vlad, like the top ones, sure. Vlad Jr., Freeman, Harper, great. Pete Alonso, if he lands somewhere that doesn't just suppress him, which I doubt he would go somewhere that's going to eat up power, I'm fine with that at 48. Matt Olson, 55. And then we go from 55 to 92. And that right there is your first indication that first base is just not that deep. That's a huge jump. And we go from Matt Olson to Christian Walker, who I like, but man, sixth first baseman, maybe. I mean, we'll see. Our boy Vinny P right there at 100 on the button. Josh Naylor, another guy we've liked, 109. Tristan Casas, Jake Berger, Spencer Steer, and Christian Encarnacion Strand kind of getting a don't forget him sort of draft pick there at 131 because there's a lot of hype for him coming into the year. It hasn't quite panned out, paired with injury. But I agree, maybe don't forget about him because there's a lot of upside there. What'd you think of first base?
I think this is the first time in fantasy baseball history where we're talking about like positional scarcity with first base.
It feels weird, right? Because that's where you get offense.
Yeah, this is where you find the offense, and not anymore. The offense is other places. And so while I don't necessarily like draft from a positional scarcity perspective, I might use like, hey, is this guy a first baseman as a tiebreaker?
Right.
Because especially because we're going to talk about like guys at this position that are also eligible at other positions like Spencer Steer, like Jake Berger, like Christian Encarnacion Strand is on this list of first basemen who were drafted. Dude hasn't played like all year. Like he is like.
I knew he was bad, but he was wretched, dude. 29 games with a 34 WRC plus. I agree with like don't forget about him, but I don't know about top 150. I'm regretting that one a little bit now that I'm looking at it. I'm like, maybe that was a little early on CES.
Yeah, like he's been injured and he was atrocious when he was playing.
That's Zach though. He goes out and gets his guys. He went seventh round on Junior Caminero, and he's always going to be trusting the talent and his valuations.
To Zach's credit, I like his team. Like, I mean,
right. I think it's a totally fine team. I'm not blasting the pick. I'm just saying, like, I mean, I guess I kind of am, but not in like a FU sort of way. Just kind of like, yo, you're still all the way bought in. Respect. Yeah. Okay. Because, I still think he's a guy who can hit 30. Plain and simple. Absolutely. Question is how much stock. Right. And how much stock do you put into this ugly 29 games? And then even if you don't put too much stock into it, you do still have to ask about maybe the plate skills. 29% K rate, 5% walk. Will he be consistent enough, Christian Encarnacion Strand, to hit those 30 homers? But I don't mind taking the shot on your talent. And he's one of those guys that I think will rise, maybe not from this price point, but he could rise to this price point as more people kind of get on board and we get further away from the 29 games. We say it's an injury washout. He's fully healthy. I could see hype building again. I got to ask you about Berger because he got a billion homers in the second half here. I guess just it's a general one. Like, what do you think? Are you in on him? Is he a top 150 guy for you? He's chasing down another 30 homer season here. He didn't get traded out of there because he was playing so poorly, I think, that nobody wanted him, and then he took off once the deadline was done. Jake Berger has, I think, 13 homers since the break, which I know is a little bit before the deadline too. But what did we think? 15 homers since the break with a 305 average, but he hit 225 with 10 homers before the break. So we've seen the good, we've seen the bad. Jake Berger next year, what do you think?
I mean, I think one of the reasons he didn't get traded too is because of the amount of control. I mean, he's not a free agent until 2029.
Right.
He doesn't even enter arbitration until 2026. So like he's super cheap for them. And
no, that's a good point. He's on the right side of 32. They shouldn't. Yeah. That's fair.
So like I mean, I think Jake Berger in a different situation is a star, and we just don't talk about him enough because
I agree.
He's in Miami.
And was in Chicago before that.
Yeah. So like this is like a perfect spot for him. He's going to be first and third eligible, so you got to love that.
Love that.
I think that Berger like is easily a top 150 pick. He's probably closer to a top 100 pick. Okay. You're talking about a guy who's double eligible, can hit 30 bombs in an era where guys don't hit 30 bombs as much anymore. So I'm totally fine on Jake Berger. There is ups and downs, and obviously he changes value depending on format, because a guy like Jake Berger is going to run really hot and really cold, so you don't want him in those head-to-head leagues, or you don't want to spend a high pick on him.
That's why we're Roto Boys, baby.
Yep.
Just
Yeah,
check in
but
with me
a
October
lot,
1st.
a lot of people listen also, like,
No, no,
like play the
there's
head
no
to head.
hate.
So I'm just
No hate on our
giving.
H to Hers. And you do have to be careful. This is one of those guys, Jake Berger. This player type has distinct value differences between head to head
Yep.
and roto because of that volatility, those ups and downs. So I totally agree with you there. And I agree with your whole point. I'm with you on the top 150 pick for Bergs. Back to back 30 homer seasons. The first base eligibility being the draw more so than the third base eligibility. It's a crazy situation at first. Let's jump over to the Keystone, which has some turnover here, like or some volatility, I should say, because it's guys that have been around for a while, but how trustworthy are they? Marte dealing with this ankle, just went on the IL, but has had an amazing season. Albies hurt, but still good when he's there and performing. Altuve down to 71. By the way, Marte went 30, Albies 65. So those are the three guys that are in the top 100. Marte, Alves, and Altuve. Then you go to 103 to Matt McLean, another Cincinnati Red who hasn't played much but is getting a lot of love. And I loved McLean, so I'm in on that too. I'm going to buy back in on him. Westberg at 118, your boy Luis Garcia 127, Xander Bogaerts 135, Nico Horner 146, and Marcus Semien 147. I'll take that all day. I love
Yeah.
Marcus Semien. What do you think of second base here? Anybody stand out to you on either end, positive or negative?
Matt McLean going as high as he is, considering
Little
he's
dicey,
missed,
little pricey.
yeah, missed the entire season. Um, Man, it's just weird seeing guys like Jordan Westberg and Luis Garcia as high as they are.
Right? It's
Considering they were going so low this draft season. I'm not saying they don't deserve to,
no. But
but
like Garcia was an afterthought, and Westberg wasn't on the team yet, so
yeah,
nobody knew what to do with him yet.
yeah. So I mean, this is for Westberg, it's going to be a lot to do with like, hey, what is he when he comes back, or if he comes back? He is taking one-handed swings right now, so like there is a distinct possibility he's going to make it back before the end of the season. I want to see him
Right.
on the field. Thankfully, they'll be in the playoffs, and maybe they'll make a deep run. We'll definitely get to see him play a little bit.
Not with that pitching,
So,
they won't.
I don't know. It's just demoted their boy.
How dare they?
Yeah, so like those are definitely interesting guys. Seeing Marcus Semien and Nico Horner as low as they are feel like steals. I know that they've
Pun
had
intended with Nico?
no pun
Feel
intended.
like steals? Damn
Yeah,
it.
I wish no, but I feel like both of those guys, like I know that Semien especially has like he's had a down season, but like all he does
So has
is,
Horner, by the way. I just want to throw that
yeah,
in.
yeah,
So has
yeah.
Horner.
But I mean, but all Semien does is play. Like
Right.
he's gonna have like his fourth consecutive 700 plate appearance season. I know it is a down
huge.
season, but like I think he's gonna be fine. Like I think he
All
is,
his skills are still there, right? He has
yeah.
30-point lower BABIP.
His XBA is 264.
I think it's entirely the BABIP.
He's actually got the best max exit velocity of his career.
Yeah, Marcus Semien's getting screwed this year. There's no way that that's his ADP, by the way. For me alone, I will make sure it's not because I'll draft him higher and I'll bring that up from the 10th round. I thought that was an amazing pick by James Anderson.
Yeah, I love that.
With Semien.
James put on a clinic during this.
He did. A lot of good constructed teams, though, too, because it was a tight room, really tough room with a lot of folks in there. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just think Semien's way too low in this. So I'm surprised he doesn't, especially with, like the one thing you notice, you put together a nice little like spreadsheet for us in terms of like,
that I got from James Anderson, credit where it's due.
Yeah. Okay. So James put together a really nice spreadsheet of like where each position had players. And you look and the smallest column is second base. It's got the fewest amount of players drafted. And so it's a little surprising that a guy like Semien is as low as he is, considering, hey, the position in itself isn't as deep in that top 150 as other positions.
All right. You're getting close on time. Can you do third base and then we do shortstop, outfield, and relief pitcher tomorrow before the two-step board?
Yeah, I think we can do that.
All right, let's just do third base real quick, the hot corner here, because they got some interesting names. Our boy Jake Berger, of course, is back. So is Westberg. Obviously, some dual eligible folks. J-Ram at the top at 6, no surprise. Couple guys in the 20s, Devers and Riley. Then our boy Royce Lewis at 38. Got no problem with that. Can't wait to dive in and get hurt again. I'm an idiot. Then we go from 38 to 87. with Manny Machado, another big drop like we saw over at first base. So third base also feeling a little bit, but then we started to get into the 100 to 150 range and things exploded. So Machado at 87, then we go to 101 where Junior Caminero, Alec Boehm, Westberg, Berger, Josh Young, Alex Bregman, excuse me, and Mark Vientos went through from picks 101 to 144. I want to start backwards because I love that Vientos pick.
Yeah, I did too.
I look at somebody like Vientos as what people, what myself included, by the way, thought Christian Encarnacion Strand was going to be. But since Vientos is producing and doing it already, I'm definitely taking him at 144 over CES at 131. And I know I'm kind of drilling on this pick a little bit, so pardon me to the person who selected CES. It's not so much to slam that, just to say like Vientos did it, like he's doing it. So aren't they similar there with Vientos and CES? Or am I off base on that comparison?
No, I don't think you're off base, but I also think that Vientos has a downside that's similar to CS. We're talking about a guy who, while like
Yeah.
the numbers are amazing, right? Like he's hit 20 home runs in just 79 games. He's got a 280 batting average. Like those are all like, I mean, it's crazy for a guy who is just like, he is just a straight power hitter to be doing that. We're talking about a guy who with a 78% zone contact.
Right.
Like that's not a great number. And I do want to say someone reached out to me on Twitter or DM me on Twitter, which my DMs are always open if you have a question or whatever. And he was like, well, on StatCast, like there's a lot of guys who were like below that 80% threshold. I don't use the StatCast zone contact numbers.
Okay.
I use the Sports Solutions
The one
that
from
we have on
Fangraphs.
on Fangraphs.
Got it.
And
So they're a little differently constructed.
they are differently constructed. They have a different zone.
Okay.
So it changes the numbers. So when I'm when I'm talking about zone contact or like any of the like the O swing, the Z swing, things like that, I'm not using StatCasts. If I was using StatCasts, I'd have to use a different barometer for numbers. So
okay, cool. Good to know.
But yeah, like Vientos doesn't have great contact skills necessarily.
Right.
What he does do is just hit the piss out of the ball.
He just mashes, dude.
He just
like
mashes the ball.
Slams, dude. And that's the thing. 26% strikeout rate, 8% walk, not great skills, but neither was CES. And so I'm saying I at least saw 300 plus plate appearances of Vientos doing it. I'd rather take him, although maybe it's CES having first base that is the clincher there, since we talked about how crazy first base is. But no, I think both these positions, both corner positions, are a little light. And that goes back to the original point that we were talking about the team construction early. I think I want to have my whole infield 8-9 rounds in. And that's why, and the pitching is what's going to take the hit there, obviously, because you can only get so many hitters there and still have room for pitching. I'm going to want my ace, my relief ace, and then maybe one or two others depending on how everything else breaks. But then I'm working in that infield and getting obviously an outfielder or two as well, because that obviously runs deep. But you saw, what was it, 8 players at second base, 10 or 11 at third base, or excuse me, 12 at third base. I can't let this run too much without getting those positions.
It's going to be really, really difficult to figure out, right? Like it's going to be a really
great puzzle.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting roster constructions. I think you're going to see a lot of teams do, and we saw in this draft, a lot of teams do really, really different things. Like, John Fish at the 2 spot took Bobby Witt, and then he took 5 straight pitchers.
Yeah, he went yellow brick road, and then 5 hitters to end it with Christian Walker, Riley Green, Jake Berger, Christian Yelich, and Ian Happ. And I think he really bounced back. And when I say bounced back, I mean from the offense he gave up in rounds 2 through 6. Yeah. Like that's a good group.
And then James Anderson did the inverse of that, where he took 5 of 6 hitters in the first 6 rounds, and then Robert Suarez in the middle of that before he double tapped on starting pitching after that. So like, there's going to be lots of different ways to build, and it's going to be really interesting to see what people do. I tend to lean towards James's way of thinking that I'm probably going to push pitching down a little bit, maybe not as far as James did, because while I do love both Hunter Brown and Brandon Pfaadt, having them as my 1-2 seems a little scary. But I do kind of love the theory of what he did. in drafting his team. But you're gonna have to make decisions. This is gonna be a
Yeah.
hard year for like decisions, and every year is. But
Talent's overflowing though, and it's creating a lot of
yeah,
different dynamics that you try to build. Going back to Fish's team real quick with the 5 pitchers rounds 2 through 6, I love the pitchers that he took though too. If you are going to go that heavy pitching, I want as stable as you can get, and it's an
yep,
unstable world of pitching. But he goes Kirby, Fromber, Nola, King with Devin Williams as his ace closer. I love that. And like I said, I
yeah,
really think he bounced back by getting the power. Because what I really worry about when I don't take hitting in that early round period is losing out on the power. But Walker, Berger, Riley Green, Yelich, and Happ, I think, especially Walker and Berger,
yeah.
give him more of that power back there with Witt setting the foundation. So I thought that was a good construction. James's was my favorite, not just kissing up to him because of the great article he put together, but I really do like that pitching light setup that I think I'm going to be following. So check that article out on RotoWire.
I'll probably follow a middle road. Like I look at Dom Rello's team, and I go like he went Mookie, Devers, Sale, Duran, Reagans, Sal Perez, Pascatino, Casas, Dominguez, Swellenbach, Ryan Pepiot. I love that.
I do like how he did groupings though. 2 hitters, 3 pitchers. 4 hitters, 2 pitchers.
That feels like something
that.
I would do. And I really
yeah, and that is probably the middle road of those two because he still winds up with 5 pitchers in the 11 rounds, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, I'm probably in the 3 to 4 pitcher range through those first 11, ideally. And just want to get my established foundational hitting and work from there. If only because I just feel better about late round pitching and then the waiver pitching. Because I'm obsessed with pitching. I study it all the time, and maybe I'm not the best at it, but I at least know who's doing what. And I'll try to find next year's Raylo and never get a 2 start from him, but maybe get a bunch of innings with a sub-3 ERA like we have gotten from Raylo this year. But anyway, we're going to wrap this up right now.
Before we wrap it up.
Go ahead. I'm trying to be respectful of your time. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got like 7 minutes left. Can we just talk about like the DHs?
Oh, yeah. Let's go ahead and knock them out. 4 utilities.
4 utility guys in the top 150 here. I love it. I absolutely love it. If you were getting discounts on DHs, and I assume like they could be the kind of guys that move down, obviously Ohtani not included.
Name the 4 real quick. Go ahead.
So we have Ohtani, obviously, who's going to be UT only from an offensive perspective, but because of the pitching, he's going to go first or second overall in most drafts. Right. Marcell Ozuna went in the 4th round. Kyle Schwarber, who is going to be UT only heading into the season, is in the 6th round. And then Brent Rooker is going to be UT only after having, I think, outfield eligibility this year.
He did.
He went in the 10th round. Love all these guys.
Me too.
I'll tell you, like, if I have the biggest regret of this season, right? The biggest mistake I made wasn't on necessarily like missing on a particular player. It was identifying an amazing value and not taking it.
Right.
And Marcell Ozuna was the biggest value versus ADP on my draft board. And I passed him every time for other UT only guys.
Really? That's surprising because you're not averse to taking the UT only.
I'm not. Well, but the rationale was like, I can get Eloy later.
Right. Or JD Martinez.
I get JD Martinez later or Buxton later. And I should have just taken the biggest value on my draft board.
Yes.
And if I had, I'd have a number of teams where I'm power deficient.
He might have helped that. Marcell Ozuna, I think, would have helped.
Yeah. And so my biggest miss on the season was that it wasn't that I missed on a player. I just identified the player and then didn't draft him anymore.
You're like, that guy's going to be great. Let me take this other guy. Let me take this other guy.
Like a moron, right?
So 2 years in a row for both Ozuna and Rooker. Ozuna has his own history behind that where, he's had other good seasons, but he was kind of left for dead for good reason. 2021 and 22 on the field. Before you even talk one thing about off the field situation with the DV and the stuff with his wife, he looked terrible. And I'm sure the two are interrelated, right? You're having a terrible life off the field, you're going to bring it on the field. Hopefully everything's great there with his family and wife. But the offense is going crazy now. This is going to be back-to-back 40-homer seasons if he hits 3 more homers this year. Meanwhile, Rooker in Oakland / Sacramento, Think about the park change next year for Oakland guys. What do you think of Butler, Rooker, Blade? Maybe even get back in on the Geloff
Yeah.
situation. Rooker's a homer away from his second straight 30 homer season while adding 40 points to his batting average. You feel pretty good about Rooker in the top 150 pick?
I think so. I mean, especially with like you said. I mean, obviously the A's could trade him in the offseason.
Right.
They may. But if they do, like, okay, then he just moves from what was a bad park to a better
To a
park.
neutral, yeah.
Yeah, wherever he was gonna go is gonna be a better park than Oakland.
No
Because
doubt.
Miami's not trading for him. So like,
Exactly.
right? Like, so once they just ship him across to San Francisco, like
That's about the only thing, and I
yeah.
still think a righty in San Francisco is fine.
It's still better. Yeah, it's still better than Oakland, right? So um I would be totally fine. I would prefer him to stay in Oakland because they're going to be playing in Sacramento next year, and that is a AAA park, and it
I'm
is
actually
built
really
like a
psyched
AAA
about that,
park.
dude.
So there are going to be a lot of bonds. Do not draft an Oakland pitcher. Like
No,
outside of Mason Miller, do not draft an Oakland.
the frustrating
like,
part is that they've developed some intriguing ones this year, and I am going to have to
yeah,
stay away from them because normally you gravitate toward Oakland pitchers. If you have any
yep,
talent, you know you have at least half a starter. Start him at home. And I like Sears and Estes and Spence, and I've even been liking Osvaldo Bido, who threw another nice outing today. I think he only gave up 2 runs, 1 run in 5 innings, 6 Ks. So, but you're right. Don't take them next year. Meanwhile, I'll take anybody who has a bat in their hand with Oakland because, think about what Butler, Shea Langoliers, JJ Bleday,
yep.
Rooker, what they're going to do next year. It's going to be great. But,
I mean,
all right, so those are the
that's the
DHs.
name
Go
we
ahead.
didn't talk about in catcher. Is
Oh, yeah, Bangoliers.
Langoliers should be in that top 150.
If Francisco Alvarez is going to be, I don't know how Langoliers can't,
Yeah.
especially when you consider the park
when
change.
when you go in when now you're going to be playing in Sacramento, like that's going to be a really really nice place.
Hit 22 homers this year in 106 games after hitting 22 and 135 last year. So he's been better. The average is even better. I know it's only 227, but that's up 22 points. So anyway, I do have to go. I'm going to pee. I have the bladder of an ant, but we'll talk shortstop, outfield, and reliever tomorrow, and then still get to the two-step board. We'll be quick on the two steps. I'll make sure it's only the guys that really need to be discussed. All right, Justin, I'll talk with you tomorrow morning. Have a good one.
Take it easy.